Hello students! In this video I'm going to show you a few job materials dossiers from 4 or 5 members from the class, and I'm just going to narrate through them as I read through to see how you all have performed so far at the draft stage. I will give you some comments, and if you are one of the ones whose dossier I have chosen, you'll get some direct feedback from me. If you're not one of the ones whose dossier has been chosen, nevertheless, please take all of my guidance into consideration as you work on your revision. So I'm going to jump right in so I can try to get through a few before this video gets too long. So here's an example of one of your classmates' dossiers that was turned in as a draft. This student chose Tech Writer Communicator for MedPace from the STC Jobs portal. This student used the strategy to annotate by using red font and just inserting questions into the actual ad itself. You scroll down, you get to the student's letter of interest. This is David. And next you get to the student's resume. First thing I want to point out here is that the student doesn't answer the 3 questions that I asked to be answered at the end of the annotated job ad. So I'm going to show another right after this one that does have those questions answered. But this is a very nice and tidy PDF, and I do appreciate that. This letter is quite concise as well. One thing that I would ask to be developed in this is more connections between the skills that the student has and the qualifications that the job is looking for. Just try to find a way to expand. The third thing I want to say is about the resume. So this resume, at least as it pulls up as a PDF through my web browser, shows that there are at least 3 different font faces going on in this resume. You want to pick 1, at most 2, and stick with it. This also has 4 different colors of font. That's too many. 2 is plenty, 1 is ideal. What I mean by font faces is this is a sans serif font. This is an Arial font. It doesn't have any little flourishes coming off of each letter. And this is a serif font. It has these little flourishes coming off of the letter. So you're going to want to pick the same kind of font throughout your resume, unless you're using a different one to signal different sections. So this student does a good job of giving a summary statement and highlights, and then education from most recent to least recent. This student says he's a BA in biology with a minor in English. The student could focus in on some courses he is taking that would resonate with the job ad. For example, Intro to Technical and Professional Writing. If the student's taken editing or documentation, those could be relevant courses that are listed here. There's a few spacing problems here. This January 2017, I'm guessing pertains to store level manager, but that leads one to believe that that's just 1 month. If it's continuing, it would be January 2017 to present, and all of those dates should be up adjacent to the title of that particular item under experience. I'm going to move on to the next one just to try to keep this concise. This is another student who's provided a lot of annotation on a job ad. You can see all of these questions that the student asked here in the right-hand sidebar. The student does answer the questions: why is it appealing to you? What did they expect this employee to do? And what surprises you at all relative to what you thought about the field? This is great. This gives me an opportunity to engage with your reflection. And so this is wonderful. I really enjoy reading that. So this is the student's letter of interest. It's very nicely formatted, and it talks specifically about how the technical and professional writing certificate given him a strong background that pertains to the field. This student also connects other past experience to this job and really makes the case. This letter is a kind of argument. It's making a case for why this student is a good fit for this job. Next we have Roger's resume, very nicely formatted, clean and concise. You can also look at this on the discussion board if you so choose, and you can read this on your own, but this is a pretty usable, concise resume. Here we have another annotated resume, and this student chose the marketing specialist position, who would assist the director of marketing and communication. And this student asks some interesting questions of the letter and highlights some of the key requirements within the letter, which is a really good tactic in order to hone in on some content that you might want to put in your job letter. This student says exactly that. She says, use for app letter. So scrolling through, you see that this student also answers the questions that I ask. Why is it appealing to you? What do they expect this employee to do? And what surprises you? As I said, those are really illuminating for me to read. So this student writes another really robust letter that has some rich content in it. This body paragraph here in the middle is especially good. Being an English major has given me a writing and document design centered background. One thing I would recommend is that the student look into compound adjective hyphenation, because some of that would need to be hyphenated. The student continues, I have taken multiple grammar courses, one of which was a combination undergraduate, graduate level course, giving me a strong sense of how to vary my writing while still adhering to the appropriate technical standards. That sounds really strong. She took part in a linguistic research study and was an instructional assistant. So that's all really good content. Of course, none of you probably at this point would have all of the skills that these firms are looking for when hiring a technical communicator, but what I'm looking for is for you to do as best you can to connect the skills that you do have from your coursework in technical and professional writing to what these companies are looking for. Now, this student, this looks very much like a scannable, searchable resume, but we don't need to do that necessarily. So what I want the student to do is provide more distinction to the different sections and use a few different indentation widths to set off information that is different from the information above it. So summary, education, employment history, those are major section headings. So they could be bolded, they could be underlined. Now we have University of New Mexico, College of Arts and Science, BA in English currently in progress. It's more standard to put the year that one has started the degree and then a hyphen and then in progress. Coursework has been intensive. We don't know anything more specific, however. This is sort of an encompassing statement. That's not bad, but it could be done more in a bullet pointed list. That's a bit more customary than writing a narrative statement in this section. Employment history, again, as I said, this is a major section heading, so it could be bolded. Now, there are 1, 2, 3 different employers here. Those should be indented and put in a different font intensity or font face to make them stand out. And again, look at some of the examples in the book for how to differentiate between the different kinds of information in a resume. The same kinds of information should always be emphasized in the same way. But this is a solid start. Now, the last thing I'm going to show you is, so this is Marcos Montoya's, actually I'm going to show you 2 more things. This is Marcos Montoya's accompaniment. This is his multimodal accompaniment. He did it with Wix, and he just gives a little sort of biographical statement about who he is here on the right. And this particular template that he chose has this cute hover over that shows a bullet pointed list, and he nicely formatted this using the same grammatical style for each item in the list. That's called parallelism, and it's well done here. So remember, you shouldn't forget that you also have to do a multimodal accompaniment. So the last one I'm going to show you is actually submitted as a Word doc. Remember, these all need to be submitted as PDF in the final version, but because this is a Word doc, I can actually show you a few things that I would do in this resume. So this is Ariel's, and she has this block of text at the top, formatted in such a way that all of the, each item here has a space between it. What you want to do is put your block of content next to each other. And you would use the styles at the top, or sometimes there's a drop-down menu under a certain toolbar that gives you the ability to clear out the formatting so that you're not defaulting to the double spacing that it seems to want to do here. A space needs to be put in here between the area code and the number. But what I'm basically saying is this block of contact information needs to be more tightly squeezed together. Same here. This problem kind of repeats throughout this resume, that these items here have an extra space between this line and this line and this line. You don't have to put in the address and the phone number for your educational institutions. Just the city and state is fine. Generally, if you look in your book, you've got the name of the institution, where it's located, and your major and the years that you were there. So you want to stick to that standard content because that's what people expect to find. So this needs to be reformatted to have those content expectations fulfilled. As I mentioned in my previous videos and emails, you want to make sure that your most recent place, the University of New Mexico, is the first one, because that's where you currently are. So you would put whatever year you started, 2015 to present, whatever it is, and your expected date of graduation. So Ariel has a lot of good content here. It just needs to be reformatted a little bit. She says that Adobe Certified Associate, that's a really good skill, but it's a little confusing in terms of emphasis of information, honors and organization. So this is an honor here, or a certification. And then we have El Paso Fighting Hunger in El Paso. Is that an organization? Is it an honor? This seems to be artificially conjoined when maybe these should be different sections, because it's sort of confusing the content by jumbling it all together. So this particular resume seems like there's an opportunity in here to elaborate and to reorganize information and to tighten up some of the excess white space that is included in the resume. There's extra white space here, and there's extra white space here in between these lines. Now, it's really a good idea to look in your book at the models that are included for resumes. I'll just show you last. Ariel has also annotated here this document and moves into the cover letter. Everybody be sure that you include the 3 questions that I asked here. But before I conclude, I just want to show the assignment one more time. Be sure that you look at the prompt one more time before you do your final revisions, and take into account the commentary that your peers leave for you in the peer review discussion board. And as you're making your final revisions, incorporate those changes. So I hope you found some information in this video helpful to you. And who knows, next time I do one of these, it could be your draft that I select to go through in the video.